Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and the Formula 1 2022 season is off and running. The first race has just finished. They're going around their parade lap now. I thought I'd get this video out straight away. And it was quite a Grand Prix. The Prancing horse is back. Their first win since Singapore 2019, their first 1-2. Couldn't have gone much better for them. Charles Leclerc led throughout. It was an amazing performance from him. Sainz did incredibly well. He was in the podium positions all race, obviously managed to get second in the end. So is this going to be it for the rest of the season? Are Ferrari going to dominate? Well, surely we'll see Red Bull bounce back from this disaster. Both cars breaking down. I know Perez spun, but by the sounds of it, I guess we'll find out more later, but it sounds like he had an engine problem that caused him to spin. Both cars out the points. This is not the way to start a championship defence for Verstappen, and it's not the way to try and win the Constructors for Red Bull. This is a massive loss. On race pace, they look a little bit behind Ferrari. Maybe it's just this track, but I don't know. Verstappen and Leclerc had a great wheel-to-wheel battle around the midpoint of the race, but otherwise this was fairly easy for Leclerc. Mercedes were given a gift. Hamilton getting third, Russell fourth. They raced about where they were. They're behind Red Bull and Ferrari. They're very lucky the Red Bulls didn't finish. But it does suggest that at some point during the year there's going to be a point where we get Red Bull versus Ferrari versus Mercedes all on similar pace. Maybe it might vary track to track, but that suggests it's going to be a very exciting year up the front. And it seems like the cars can follow each other better, although I don't think this track is the best example of cars battling and overtaking, because this track sucks. Bahrain has always been boring, and let's be honest, this Grand Prix was not very interesting for the first 50 laps. It took Gasly bursting into flames and Verstappen and Perez having issues to make this race interesting. Again, it's the stories outside that are interesting. Ferrari's rise to the top, Mercedes' issues, and as it turns out, Red Bull might have even bigger issues. The race itself, this track is awful. I hate Sakir. Like, when they did the short track, that was way better. I wish they'd kept that layout for the Grand Prix, because it just sucks. I hate this track so much. This is actually my least favourite track on the calendar, I think, off the top of my head, until we get to another one I don't like. There will be more interesting races, and the cars look like they can run close together. We'll see some close battling, especially in the midfield. The midfield got very strung out today. I don't think that's going to be the case at every race. I think there's going to be some very tight battling. So obviously I'm very happy for Leclerc. It's about time he had a really competitive car under him, because he really deserves it. Same goes for Sainz. Both are really good drivers. And it's brilliant seeing Ferrari back. I love Ferrari. I think most motorsport fans at least like Ferrari. So it's great to see them up there again. Behind them were the Mercedes. As I said, very fortunate that the Red Bulls broke down. They did not have a great race. There was a point where they were 30 seconds behind. They're very lucky the safety car came out, although I think they probably got third and fourth anyway. As for everyone else behind that, Kevin Magnussen in fifth. What a comeback. Talking of Ferrari's comeback, Kevin Magnussen, who was out in the wilderness of WeatherTech sports car racing, jumps back in a race seat and gives Haas their first points finish in 2 years. Unbelievable. You would not put money on it. Maybe he's grabbing a point or two, but not fifth place. Kevin Magnussen in a Haas is currently fifth in the championship, is another way to look at it. Behind him, we had Bottas in sixth in an Alfa Romeo. I didn't have high hopes for Alfa Romeo. I thought this was going to be a really, really tough year for them. Both drivers got into the points, and I'll get to Joe later. But a fantastic drive for Bottas. You saw him battling with people throughout the race. He was battling with Tsunoda for quite a while. But he dropped down from the start. He qualified in sixth, dropped down, then managed to get back up to sixth. Again, helped by the Red Bulls breaking down, but still, brilliant. I did not expect Bottas to be able to do that in an Alfa Romeo. He struggled to do that in a Mercedes sometimes. Ocon behind him. I think Alpine are very lucky. The race, they seem to have some pace, but they're definitely a midfield team. Tsunoda behind him did a good job coming up from 16th to 8th. And very few mistakes. He held people behind him. He's a very tough man to pass. And Gasly breaking down, he at least grabbed some points for AlphaTauri, who I think have a good car behind him. May have been a bit harsh on Tsunoda. I think both him and Gasly are very capable of scoring points. It's going to be a very interesting year from their perspective. Fernando Alonso always somehow manages to get around the points. 9th place isn't bad. He made a lot of pit stops, it seemed. I think he came in 3 or 4 times. I think everyone did in the end, but it just seemed like Alonso kept going into the pits, but it worked out for him in the end. And Guan Yu Zhou, on his debut, the only debutant in the field, grabbing 10th place, getting a point right at the end. Yes, because Gasly burst into flames, and yes, because the Red Bulls broke down. Still an amazing performance from Guan Yu Zhou. And forget whatever else happens in his Formula 1 career. His debut, he's got to the end of the race, he stayed out of trouble, and he got a point for his efforts. It doesn't get much better for that, especially when you're with a team like Alfa Romeo, who are definitely a midfield team, and you're still learning. Honestly, it can't go much better than getting a point at your first Grand Prix. So, an amazing job from Guan Yu Zhou, a driver I like very much. Still don't know how to say his name. Commentators, they should know. Both of them said it both ways. Both at some point said either Zhou Guan Yu or Guan Yu Zhou. So if you're Chinese or just know better than anyone else, tell me what his name is. Behind him and pretty much the rest of the field, Mick Schumacher, very unlucky not to get a point. It would have been his first points in Formula 1 as well, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But he did drive well. The Aston Martins had a terrible race. Pretty much down the back end of the field the whole time. Didn't seem to make much progress. Same goes for Williams, who I thought would struggle. They are pretty much the last team again. So after all that promise last year, it seems like this new development has caught them out a bit. And McLaren, awful race. And I rated them very highly. I thought they were going to have a very good year. I thought Lando Norris was going to have a very good year. I'm not so sure now. So that's a disappointment. So that was the first race in Bahrain. It's interesting, and things kind of happened eventually, but it's just not a very entertaining Grand Prix. Has there ever been a really, really good Bahrain Grand Prix? I mean, throughout the race. I don't mean like every lap something exciting happens, but general interest at various points. It's interesting to see the new technology and all the off-field stories, of course, that have come into this. There's been a lot of controversy leading into this Grand Prix. But Bahrain just sucks. Get this track off the calendar. Because it's been on there so long as well, and it's never been a good track. And we go to Saudi Arabia next week, which was a very interesting Grand Prix, but it seemed kind of dangerous. So I presume they're making some changes to that, and we'll have to see what that's like. But it was an interesting Grand Prix last year, at the least. I mean, a lot of crashes, weren't there? Was there a couple of big crashes? I think that's more in the lower formula, but it does not seem like... it'll be better than this one. Everything's better than Bahrain. The first one I was really, really looking forward to is Australia, and hopefully it doesn't get cancelled this year. So, and the first race I'm really, really looking forward to is Melbourne. But I am glad Formula 1's back. I did enjoy watching it. There's some really interesting stuff going on, and yay, Ferrari. So with that, remember to subscribe. There'll be more Formula 1 reviews in the future, as well as other content. Leave a comment, leave your thoughts, tell me what you think of the Bahrain Grand Prix. I don't know what else. Leave a like, tell your friends. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.